Please. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. Bass in your face. Bass in your face.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with the channel or watching this channel for the first time, the reason why it is called Uncommon Sense because here on this platform, we discuss everyday issues where we try to find logical solutions. But not everyone uses logic. So for that reason, it is called Uncommon Sense. I also have another channel called Latino Diaspora, where I talk about issues pertaining to Latinos living in the United States. The link to that channel is in the description. I want to let everybody know that I'm currently live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Also, the subscriber mode has been enabled, meaning if you're not a subscriber and if you wish to enter a comment in the chat, you would need to subscribe to the channel. As always, I want to give a huge shout out to all those who already subscribed to the channel, whether you've been a supporter from the very beginning or just recently joined. I really appreciate your support. I also want to give a huge shout out to all those who follow me on social media. Also, a huge shout out to all those who allow me to enter in your devices. And a huge shout out to those who watch from the clouds, even the haters. So, what I'm going to ask you to do is the following. I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, like, and set the bell notification to all. So, therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. So, tonight, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be giving you my assessment regarding the presidential debate, which occurred earlier this week. So what I'm going to do is, under the guise of fair use, I'm going to show some video clips, and then we're going to make assessments. Okay. Those of you who watched the vice presidential debate, of course, many of you already made up your minds as far as which one of the two candidates did a better job, and that's perfectly fine. And of course, you're more than welcome to share your observations as well. But before we get into the main topic, we're going to have another episode of In My Words. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about, of course, is the Major League playoffs that which are occurring right now. So now we're entering what is the divisional playoffs. Okay. For those of you who did not watch the stream last night, the way the playoff structure is set up is, of course, you have the three teams that won the respective divisions in each league, which consists the American, the Central, and Central, Eastern Division, Central Division, and Western Division. And then after that, you have teams who didn't win the divisions, but they finished fourth highest winning percentage, fifth highest winning percentage, and sixth highest winning percentage. Okay, now the way the playoff system is is created as follows. The two teams with the highest winning percentage of each league gets what's called a bye. In other words, they don't play in the first round of the playoffs. Okay. So the number third seed will play against the number six seed, and the number four seed will play against the number five seed. So everybody got past that round. And there's been a couple of surprises. Okay. First of all, one big surprise was that the Detroit Tigers actually swept their series against the Houston Astros. Now, those of you who are Yankee fans know that every time the Yankees face the Astros in the League Championship Series, the Yankees always fall short. So this year, at least, we don't have to deal with the Houston Astros. And I just want to say a huge shout out to the Detroit Tigers um, for getting this far. I think they're really one of the unsung teams in the American League. How far they will go, only time will tell. So it's going to be the Detroit Tigers versus the Cleveland Guardians, and the Kansas City Royals versus the New York Yankees. Okay. In the National League, it will be the Mets playing against the Philadelphia Phillies and the San Diego Padres uh, versus the Los Angeles Dodgers. I also want to give a huge shout out to the New York Mets because they basically have to win game number 161 in order to get their shot in the playoffs. And they won two out of three against the Milwaukee Brewers in Milwaukee. So a huge shout out to the Mets. And I know the Met fans are very happy. Um, how far will the Mets go? Anything can happen. Anything can happen. So I really not going to speculate on how far they will go. But it'd be interesting, particularly if they manage to get to the League Championship Series, which I have a feeling if they do get that far, they'll probably play against the San Diego Padres. I think San Diego Padres is, it's really, it's one of the hardest teams in baseball right now. So we shall see. And this Monday is a special day for me because it is my birthday. Okay, I will be 62. So as I approach my birthday, I am truly thankful because God has seen fit to allow me to have another year of life. God has seen fit to allow me to get to be 62 years old because there are many people who have never get to their 60s. So the fact that I have been able to get that point is a blessing. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to get into the main topic. Now, before I continue, let me just state for the record that the link to join the panel has been pinned. If at any time anyone wants to hit the link and join the panel, by all means, they're more than welcome to do so. Let me make this perfectly clear. If I have never seen you before or heard from you before, I will insist that you come up in the backstage to make sure that no one tries to flash anything inappropriate, which will cause the people on YouTube to take down the stream. Now I see there's another, Don Amano has his stream live, so most likely people are going to be watching this from the playback. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play some video clips regarding the vice presidential debate. I will give you my observation, and of course, all of you will have an opportunity to opine. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my link, share my. Okay. Okay, that's not what I want to do. Just give me a moment. Okay. Okay, it's just, my computer is acting up. Come on. Come on. Oh, I apologize. It's just my computer is deciding to act up tonight. Okay. Oh, okay. Uh, okay. Let's try this now. Okay, you know what? Just give me a moment. Sorry about that, folks. Let's see if I can share my screen now. Just give me a moment. Okay, this is going to be one of those nights, folks. Okay, hopefully it would appear, or else I have to just play the audio. Okay. So, as I stated, I'm going to play various clips. And again, this is under fair use, okay, for the purposes of giving my critique.
Over a month to go until Election Day, the first and only meeting between the two men who hope to become Vice President of the United States. Democratic Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota and Republican Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. Now, this is likely the final debate of this election cycle, and voting is already underway in 20 states.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and jump ahead a little bit.
The steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago. A nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together, understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the Vice President said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit, because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me, and she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served.
Now, one thing I did like about J.D. Vance, he gave a little bit of background regarding his personal life, okay? Unlike Donald Trump, J.D. Vance appeared to come down, raised from humble beginnings, served in the military, went to college, and had a level of success. So we will continue, again, fair use.
In Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, do you care to respond to any of the allegations?
Well, look, Donald Trump was in office. We'll sometimes hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles did fall.
Now, this is the thing. When you're dealing with situations like this, you need to react, okay, with a plan of action, not getting into Twitter, which is now known as X, regarding the situation. What you need to do is to plan a strategy and take effective leadership. And now we will continue on the failures. Oops, excuse me. Let me just.
And Nora, you asked about climate change. I think when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to. Nora? Margaret, thank you. Let's turn now to Hurricane Helene. The storm could become one of the deadliest on record. More than 160 people are dead and hundreds more are missing. Scientists say climate change makes these hurricanes larger, stronger, and more deadly because of the historic rainfall. Senator Vance, according to CBS News polling, 7 in 10 Americans and more than 60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate change. Senator, what responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane, because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today actually a photograph of 2 grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible, and then of course afterwards to help the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love. Some of them I know very personally, in Appalachia, all across the Southeast. They need their government to do their job. And I commit that when Donald Trump is president again, and the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. And when you asked about climate change, I think this is a very weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true. Well, if you believe that, what would you want to do? The answer is that you'd want to reshore as much American manufacturing.
Now, it's been reported that for the victims of these hurricanes and these natural disasters, that they receive a maximum of $750. Now, I don't know how accurate this is. I don't know how truthful this is. But it's shocking when you consider the amount of assistance the migrants have received. Now, don't get me wrong. I think we should help people who have to leave their countries. Okay. But I think we should be just as prepared to help our own citizens, particularly our own citizens that possibly had their homes damaged because of these natural disasters or destroyed. We will continue on the fair use.
Manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we actually care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the best thing to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
Governor Walz, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, we got close to an agreement because all those things are happening. Look, first of all, it is a horrific tragedy with this hurricane. And my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no partisanship. They work together. So all of the governors and the emergency responders are on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there so that we recover, but we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused. Now, look, coming back to the climate change issue, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen. Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act, has created jobs all across the country. 2,000 in Jeffersonville, Ohio, taking the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country. The largest solar manufacturing plant in North America sits in Minnesota. But my farmers know climate change is real. They've seen 500-year droughts, 500-year floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this has allowed them to tell me, look, I harvest corn, I harvest soybean, and I harvest wind. We are producing more natural gas and more oil at any time than we ever have. We're also producing more clean energy. So the solution for us is to continue to move forward, that climate change is real. Reducing our impact is absolutely critical, but this is not a false choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower for the future, not just the current. And that's what absolutely makes sense. And then we start thinking about how do we mitigate these disasters.
Thank you. Senator, I want to give you an opportunity to respond there. The governor mentioned that President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
There are several people who have made this assessment as well. I mean, when you think about it, it is change. I mean, considering all the chemicals, I'm sorry, just that I have some noisy neighbors in the background, that we're putting in the air. So that is, it is a serious factor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play another clip. Again, fair use. Good evening, Kesha. Thank you very much for stopping by. And of course, my friend Kesha has her channels, one of them, which is Dreadlock Diaries, where she talks about hair and a story regarding dreadlocks. And another channel, which is called Grapevine NY. So I'm going to ask her to show some love, check out her content, and subscribe to her channel. So tonight, I'm doing my reaction regarding the vice presidential debate between Governor Tim Walz and Senator J.D. Vance. So now I'm going to go speed ahead a little bit to another clip. Again, fair use.
You separate parents from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens. You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my point is that we already have massive child separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And we know that they use children as drug mules, and it is a disgrace, and it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened.
Now, let me just comment on that. Good evening, Decal. Quite a few people felt J.D. Vance won, okay? And that's one opinion. Now, this whole situation regarding the illegal aliens, so to speak, many of them came legal. I mean, they came as refugees or migrants or what have you. Okay. I personally dealt with some of these people for over a year, and they all had documentation. So this whole business regarding millions and millions of undocumented people. I mean, have there been undocumented people enter this country? Yes. But let's put things in the proper perspective. So now we will continue.
United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now, something Governor Walz,
quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things, regarding children.
The drug mule is not true, but I will say about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history. 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state, a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug intervention.
Okay.
Minnesota reduces childhood poverty by a third. We save money in the long run, and we do the right thing for families, and then getting businesses off the ground. The law as it stands right now is $5,000 tax credit for small business, increasing that to $50,000. Now, this is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this. He kept it. He took folks to Mar-a-Lago, said, you're rich as hell, I'm going to give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever. Now he's proposing a 20% consumption or sales tax on everything we bring in.
One of the hypotheses stated that people got more money in their pockets where Donald Trump was president. Some people did, others did not. Okay? I was not one of those people. In fact, when I closed on my apartment, I closed in, I believe, January of 2018. Have I been able to close the month earlier, I would have received cash back of nearly $10,000 in deductions and things of that nature as a first-time home buyer. Under Trump, those deductions went away. That is the reality. Okay. So now we will continue again for use.
Policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us. Policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Governor, do you care to respond to any of those specific allegations, including that the vice president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and drug mules, among other things?
Yeah, the crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history, 30% decrease in Ohio. But there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state and a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to solve this, and that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents, detection for drugs, DOJ money to speed the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need.
Now, I have criticized Joe Biden on multiple occasions regarding his handling of the migrant crisis or the refugee crisis, or whatever you want to call it. But I'll give credit, he did have a plan to deal with it, which would have put in more people at the border. They would have put more resources, okay? And it was a bipartisan plan. Guess who killed it? Donald Trump. Why? Because that means he would not have something to campaign against. Okay? And this is something to think about. Again, I have criticized the Biden administration for the way they handled the migrant crisis, but they had a plan, which was, thanks to Donald Trump, defeated. Now we will continue.
Policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Governor, do you care to respond to any of those specific allegations, including the president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things?
Doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. She says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president.
Senator,
again.
your Just News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations.
Look, we fix this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this. And Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield. The Republican governor said it's not true. Don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Lankford did it. We could come together and solve this. In Springfield, the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator.
Now, this has to do with Donald Trump's assertion that members of the Haitian community in Springfield, Ohio, first of all, are illegal. Second of all, they are eating dogs, cats, and other animals. First of all, there's been no report of Haitians eating dogs and cats and what have you. number one. Number two, they are all legal. They came to this country legally. They are legal residents in the United States. Okay. Unfortunately, this is their lies and then their darn lies. Okay. Now, later in the debate, Governor Walz actually asked Senator Vance whether or not did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election. Guess what? He refused to answer the question. Instead, he's talking about how we're trying to punish people with censorship on social media. Okay? Unfortunately, in 2020, there's been a great deal of misinformation in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic and dangerous misinformation. So, of course, there were certain actions that were taken to make sure that no misinformation was given. And now we will continue. Fair use. Excuse me. Come on.
The
We
CBP
wanna have-
app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris required.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much.
Now,
Ones that supported it. That's because they know we need to do this. Look, this issue of continuing to bring this up, of not dealing with it, of blaming migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable, but it becomes a blame. Look, this bill also gives the money necessary to adjudicate. I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done. This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this and you start to adhere to what we know, American principles. I don't talk about my faith a lot, but Matthew 25:40 talks about to the least amongst us, you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This bill does it. It's funded. It's supported by the people who do it. And it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status. Nora?
but
Thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important
We're
because
going to turn now to the
debate-
economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that
The
you guys
economy,
weren't going
we're-
to fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app where you can go on as an illegal migrant.
Now here, J.D. Vance is trying to spin this away regarding the situation regarding the Haitian community in Springfield, Ohio. And again, these people are legal residents. And in fact, the moderators had to silence his mic because he wouldn't shut up. So the topic for tonight is I'm doing my reaction regarding the vice presidential debate. So, and of course, he wouldn't stop yapping. So what happened was they turned off his mic. I wish they were able to do the same thing when Donald Trump was debating Kamala Harris. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead a little bit. Again, fair use. Okay.
He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top pass. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase.
Country.
Governor, do you want to respond to that? What has Kamala Harris done for the middle class?
Yeah, well, Kamala Harris's day one was Donald Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy. We were already before COVID in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression. 9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one. Whether it was the Infrastructure Act or other things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts, said this. I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. look, if you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. And the same thing goes with this. And I ask you out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, whatever, how is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years?
Interesting point. Interesting point. Now, of course, we were all affected by the pandemic in 2020. Millions of people lost their jobs. Hundreds of thousands of people died. Hundreds thousands of people died, and hundreds of thousands became infected. Irby, who do you think won the debate? I'm be curious. And now we will continue.
In the last year as president, that's what's wrong with the system. There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it.
You know, Governor, you say trust the experts, but those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off. And they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump had the wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2. And I love them very much. And I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put us to stop, and we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, your time is up. Governor Walker.
First of all, let me make this perfectly clear. Not everyone knows everything. Okay? Unfortunately, Donald Trump, he's Donald Trump. He knows everything. He's the greatest president since day one. He's like the second coming of Jesus Christ. And it's like, excuse me? This is coming from a man talking about, well, if you should ingest bleach in order to fight COVID. So now we're going to go to another clip, and we're going to go ahead and again, fair use.
Teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. I will be the first to tell you, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything.
I get it. I mean, that's what politicians will say. Whether he's sincere, I'm going to leave that to your discretion. So now we're going to go to another clip. Just give me a moment because my computer is acting up again.
That Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual states make their abortion policy. And I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided country.
Governor, would you like to respond and also answer the question about restrictions?
Yeah, well, the question got asked and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restricted state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's a very real chance.
Now, this, when it comes to reproductive rights, this is a very touchy subject, okay? I am pro-life, but I don't believe in a complete abortion ban. I do believe that abortions should be limited in the cases of rape or SA, where the mother's life is in danger, and incest. And for those of you who are not familiar with what the term incest means, that means when you as an individual decide to have sexual relations with a member of your family. That's what it is. Okay. And under Project 2025, which is the Republican platform, there is no room even for limiting abortion on those cases. And again, we will continue. Failures. Oops, excuse me. Oh, come on.
Versus Wade, we made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, this is not where, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments. For so many of you out there listening, me included, infertility treatments are why I have a child. That's nobody else's business, but those things are being proposed. And the catch-all on this is, well, the states will decide what's right for Texas might not be right for Washington. That's not how this works. This is basic human right. We have seen maternal mortality skyrocket in Texas, outpacing many other countries in the world. This is about healthcare. In Minnesota, we are ranked first in healthcare for a reason. We trust women. We trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond to the governor's claim? Will you create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had a...
Now, his notion that it should be left to the states, it's all well and good. The problem is, in blue states, there's no problem. In red states, there is a problem. Okay, but let me make this perfectly clear. The Democrats had almost 50 years to codify reproductive rights. They failed to do so. As a result, Roe v. Wade was overturned, and then it was left for the states to make a determination whether or not reproductive rights will be granted and under what conditions. So you can partially thank the Democrats for that situation. That's just my humble opinion. Now I'm just going to go hop ahead a little bit.
Here, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Laura, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just, how do we actually do it? Now, here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90% in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartels. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
Governor, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents, and they were looking.
Now, let me just state, New York has some of the toughest gun control laws in the country. The reality is this. Gun control laws in itself is not going to prevent criminals from getting access to illegal weapons and doing their business. What you do need to do is you need to have a national policy regarding gun ownership. First of all, everyone that wishes to own a gun must demonstrate that they've been properly trained in the operation of a firearm. Plus, they have to undergo a psychological evaluation to make sure that they're mentally aware. Okay. Because the last thing you want to do is allow someone that's not mentally well to have access to weapons. Okay. Thank you, Irby. Okay. That's what you need to do. More gun control laws does not do it. What does it is you got to have a national policy where if you want to legally own a weapon, you have to demonstrate that you've been properly trained. You have to demonstrate that you have gone through a psychological evaluation. Period. And we will continue. Excuse me. Under fair use.
That care. And as far as making sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that too. We know that
Okay, Chris. I'm sorry, it's just my computer is acting up again, so I'm at the mercy.
All those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact checked it with President Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on, and we're going to be right back with much more of the CBS News vice presidential debate in just a moment.
Center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out. In Minnesota, we've enacted enhanced red flag laws, enhanced background checks, and we can start to get data. But here's the problem. If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow research to be even done on gun violence. And this idea that we should just live with it, and I here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that work. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference. It's not infringing on your Second Amendment. And the idea to have some of these weapons out there, it just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go? When we know there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills. They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms, and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I hope that you're doing okay. Christ have mercy. It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said actually about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland. Is okay. First of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun.
Okay. So I'm going to hop ahead. Again, fair use.
My goods too.
Senator Vance, you still have 23 seconds there. Do you want to answer?
Can I have it?
Where? Governor, we will get to you in a moment. But Senator, where are you going to seize the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of federal lands that aren't being used for anything. They're not being used for national park. They're not being used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the vice president is letting in
Well, of course, that's not true. And again, you have the facts. I guess we agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office. But it's again blaming and not trying to find a solution. I was going to ask though on this question, are we going to drill and build houses in the same federal land? And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands. I know in the western part of the countries we do. There's not a lot of federal lands in and around Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks and our federal lands. Look, Minnesota, we protect these things. We've got about 20% of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us. But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. Like there's a chance to make money here. Let's take this federal land and let's sell it to people for that. I think there's better ways to do this. We've seen it in Minnesota. We're able to refurbish some of these houses. We're able to make some investments. That gets people in. And I'm still on the fact on this. Economists, Senator Vance, you said you don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor, your time is up. But Senator, on that point, I'd like for you to clarify. There are many contributing factors to high housing costs. What evidence do you have that migrants are part of this problem?
Well, there's a Federal Reserve study that we're happy to share after the debate. We'll put it up on social media, actually, that really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with.
Okay, first of all, the asylum seekers. And again, let me make this perfectly clear. These are people with documents. They're not undocumented people. I have dealt with them for over a year, okay? But you know what? It's easier to call people undocumented when they actually have documentation. It's just plain simple. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and proceed. And again, fair use.
Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare. On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. Now, fast forward, what that means to you is you lose your pre-existing conditions. If you're sitting at home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look, this issue, and when Donald Trump said, I've got a concept of a plan, it cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that. But what Senator Vance just explained might be worse than a concept, because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is, if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system didn't work. Kamala Harris will protect and enhance.
Now, it is a fact that Donald Trump tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act multiple times, okay? And guess what? The reason why he was not successful is because John McCain, senator from Arizona, voted against dismantling the Affordable Care Act. Okay, take that away. People like myself who have medical conditions, we don't get insured. It is that simple. And again, we will continue fair use.
The ACA.
Governor, thank you. Senator, you have not yet explained how you would protect people with pre-existing conditions or laid out that plan.
Well, look, we currently have laws and regulations in place right now that protect people with pre-existing conditions. We want to keep those regulations in place, but we also want to make the health insurance marketplace function a little bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said is actually not true. A lot of what happened and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing policies.
No, he did. No, he did not.
I would.
No, he did not. Plain simple. So now we're going to go ahead. Again, fair use.
Only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those San Diego parents. I've become friends with.
Okay, excuse me. Come on. Shoot.
Soda?
Come on. Oh, sugar. I'm sorry, folks. Just bear with me for a moment. I apologize. It's just one of those nights. So just give me a moment. I'm going to try to share my screen one more time. And it just, come on. Okay. I'm going to show you one more video clip, and that will be it. Okay, just bear with me. Okay.
Trump is saying is that when we bring in this additional revenue with higher economic growth, we're going to be able to provide paid family leave, childcare options that are viable and work for a lot of American families.
Can you clarify how that will solve the child care shortage?
Well, because as Tim said, a lot of the child care shortage is we just don't have enough resources going into the multiple people who could be providing family care options. And we're going to have to, unfortunately, look, we're going to have to spend more money. We're going to have to induce more people to want to provide child care options for American families. Because the reason it's so expensive right now is because you've got way too few people providing this very essential service.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, your ticket also has some child care tax credit proposals. Do you think Congress will agree to the $6,000 credit for newborns and $3,000 credit for children over the age of 6, as your campaign has promised? Is that realistic?
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and this is the biggest issue. Everybody listening to.
Now, child care is an issue, particularly if you are a single parent, and it can be very expensive. In fact, it can take out almost all of your wages, which is why it's so hard to find affordable childcare. Now, I'm going to play one more clip, and then that will be it.
Do not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems.
Okay, excuse me.
That Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it.
Excuse me, Donald Trump did not did not peacefully transfer power. In fact, he still denied that he lost the election. After multiple lawsuits, he continued to deny that he lost the election. In fact, he kept saying that it was rigged. And at this point, I'm just going to stop it here. I'm going to okay. Okay, excuse me. So let me just give you my assessment. Okay, I will say this much. J.D. Vance was more civil than his running mate. Okay, I think I like the part when he shares his personal story regarding how he came into being and things of that nature. But in my humble opinion, Tim Walz won the debate. He did better. He just did better. J.D. Vance did not do bad, but Tim Walz did better. That's just my humble opinion. Now, will this affect people's view when they come to vote? I doubt it. I mean, those who are Trump supporters, they're going to vote for Trump regardless of this debate. Those who support Kamala Harris, they're going to do it no matter what. But I think, in my humble opinion, while this was a debate, for the most part, if they were very civil, they both articulated their case. In my humble opinion, J.D. Vance won. So now my question is this: what do you people think? What are your observations? You're more than welcome to enter your comments in the chat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop, even though I pinned the link, I'm going to drop it again. Should anyone wishes to join the panel and opine. Okay, excuse me. Just give me a moment because my computer is acting up again. Okay. And of course, you're more than welcome to enter your comments. And again, if I never seen you before or what have you, I will insist that you come up in the backstage to make sure that no one flashes anything inappropriate, which will cause the good people at YouTube to take down this stream. If no one wishes to comment further and no one wishes to hit the link, I will start to wrap this up. Okay. Now, I just wanted to give you my honest opinion. Some of you might disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, here, this is not an echo chamber. People are allowed to express their point of views as they see fit. Okay? Because here, I encourage people to express their point of views. And if we disagree, we disagree. That as long as we're being mutually respectable. So again, if no one else wishes to hit the panel, I will start to wrap it up. If no one comment, I'm going to start to wrap this up. Going forward, I'm going to try not to have any more discussion regarding politics unless I have to. I might give my point of view regarding the results of the election, which is a month away. I would encourage all of you, regardless of who you support, make sure that you learn as much as you can regarding the person or persons that you wish to support. Okay? And vote intelligently. And of course, you do have the option not to vote for either one of these two people. You can also vote for a third party candidate, or you can write your own name if you're so inclined. The point is, we should be able to exercise our choice as far as who we want to occupy 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Not just that, but also regarding who's going to be representing us in the House and the Senate, and plus the other issues to vote on. Okay, so let me just briefly discuss what's going to be the topic on my next stream on Monday night. I will be discussing my reaction to the Pop the Balloon program. And for those of you who are not familiar, what it is, it's a program where people try to date, meet people of the opposite sex. So, like, for example, if you're talking about a dude, you have to meet a panel of women, which they'll be given a balloon. And if any of the ladies do not want to date the dude, what they'll do is they'll pop their balloons and then they give their reasons why. And the same thing, like if it's a woman, and then there's a choice of men, and if there's things where the men don't like, they can do the same thing. So I'm going to show this interesting, unique episode because as soon as the dude walked on, most of the girls popped their balloons. And some of the reasons why they did, it's ridiculous. Okay. Which is why some of these ladies, I hate to say this, they're going to grow old alone. So, with that being said, I'm going to wrap this up. Of course, all of you are more than welcome to opine. After the stream is over, just what I do is try to keep it respectable, because if we fail to do so, your comments are going to be deleted. Okay. And I do have a goal. I would like to reach 500 subs before the end of the year. So I would appreciate your assistance in spreading the word regarding my channel, and encourage others to check out my content and subscribe to the channel. So with that being said, I'm going to close at the same way I always close. We must do everything possible to avoid the presence of the mentally and intellectually challenged, because if we fail to do so, we will be infected by their stupidity and massive insanity. This has been another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron saying good night, take care, have a wonderful weekend, and peace.